have our unique timeline. What you choose to cut, what you choose to reveal, and what you choose to throw away so you can move on. We are the stories we choose to tell. What's yours?
Hi everyone, I'm Shawn Carlson with Blackmagic Design. I've taken over the Artlist YouTube channel today, temporarily, to give you this little free editing session with Blackmagic Design's Resolve 17 Studio. So just a little bit of the details to get out of the way. This is all part of the Edit Challenge, right? The Artgrid Artlist Edit Challenge 2021. So I'm using all the same footage that you will use in this challenge. Essentially, you're just going to cut together your own piece using only footage from Artgrid, Artlist, and then you can win $75,000 worth of prizes. So, I mean, there's 3 Pocket Cinema cameras available, there's copies of DaVinci Resolve, there's a number of other things, including, you know, up to $75,000 in filmmaking gear. So, now that I got all the details out of the way, I'm really just going to dive right in, and I'm going to show you what I've done with the footage, kind of walk you through the features and how I've used them, and then I'm going to get to a couple of comments or questions that you might post. So if you have any specific topics you want me to cover, drop them in the live. And let's see, what else do I need to cover before I jump right in? Nope, looks good. I'm good to go. All right, so I think we should start right here on the screen. So John, whenever you're ready, take me full. Thank you, sir. On the spot. All right. First thing I'm showing here is the cut page. Now, the cut page, you know, new in version 16, essentially allowed us to have all of the tools available to us in a single interface. The benefit of doing this is obvious to anyone that has a single screen. Something like a laptop, you know, while I can control this with the speed editor, and you know, I highly recommend that if you're going to get Resolve, you just get the speed editor version, because essentially you buy the speed editor and it comes with the studio version of Resolve when you buy the bundle. Now, so I have control here, but I just want to show the interface options. As you hover over these areas of the screen, you'll see that this one in particular is specifically designed to kind of maximize your viewing space on a single screen, so really good for a laptop. You know, back in the day when you might have been roaming the halls of NEB with your own camera, capturing your own footage, and then sit down at lunch on your laptop and cut your little promo together. This is what the cut page is really designed best for. Now, it's not to say that the tools are missing or you know, aren't available. I've hidden some here, right? There's a tool button. There's some controls up here in what's called the inspector. So basically, every time anything is selected, its tools will appear in the inspector. You can see that outlined right here in timeline. So let me just go through what I've done here. And we don't have to go full screen. This is fine. So I kept this short and sweet, just so I can talk more about the features here. You know, the tools themselves, in the cut page, I'm looking at dual timelines. So I always have this upper timeline, which is essentially like an overview of my whole cut. And then I have this lower timeline that's expanded. And, you know, I would imagine that a lot of you are probably familiar with Resolve. I've seen some of the comments that, yeah, all right, so clearly I was playing with no audio, so you can't hear that I've cut that in, but good thing you can hear me. All right, so I'm looking over at the comments to make sure that we're keeping up on everything here, and I noticed in some of the comments people were excited about working in Resolve, which is great, because obviously DaVinci Resolve, you know, if you go to our website at blackmagicdesign.com, you can download a free copy of it. There's two versions. There's the free version and the studio version. Everything I'm doing today, I'm going to be showing you the studio version, but know that there are a handful of things that are different between studio and free. The top line items, the UHD output. You can go with 2160p 60 output in the free version. You can make 16K or 32K frame sizes in the studio version. If you need custom frame sizes, all kinds of options available to you, including some hardware rendering acceleration when you get to H.264 and 5. So just to pop open something really boring like the preferences first, I also want to introduce this area here, which is for GPU configuration, because that's another big difference between the studio and the free version. The studio version allows you to have multiple GPUs. So in this case, I'm working with one internal GPU, which will open up to the free version as well. But if I had a stack or I had an external chassis full of GPUs, I could see them and I could customize the processing mode and the selection here in this panel. The other thing here in this panel includes the things I just mentioned, like decoding H.264 and 265 with hardware acceleration, and GPU for Blackmagic Raw Decode, and GPU for debayer and decompression of the R3D in Resolve. So everything we do is GPU and CPU based. Obviously, we try and throw a lot of the processing at the really powerful GPUs that are available. So before I leave this panel, you can see that I'm in the System tab, but the User tab is actually specific to your login, and you can create a preset and you can save and import and export these presets to your systems. So if you get up and work on someone else's system, you can simply bring your preset over and load your preferences. I like to turn this one on as well, the editing. This is an edit-focused session, so I'm going to point out things that I like that I tend to use in Resolve. I turn on the Smart Bin for timelines. Smart Bin is a metadata-driven bin that organizes your content. So turning on a Smart Bin for timelines actually just kind of collects them in their own bin. I know a lot of people like to organize their bin, their hierarchy, their project database to look a certain way, including bins or folders for everything, and particularly a lot of people choose a bin or a folder for their timelines. And I've taken to using this instead of that method, and there's some logic to this, especially if you're going to use the simultaneous collaborative features of DaVinci Resolve, which you might be doing. It's kind of an advanced workflow, but it's it's something that's pretty easy to get into if you just have a couple of people and a couple of studio Resolves. Actually, you can do this now. The collaborative workflow is available in the free version of Resolve also. So these are all capable of helping you out even if you don't have the studio paid version. But like I said, chances are you're just going to try and buy a speed editor, right? That's what you see right now is I'm actually controlling it with the jog wheel. Okay, so back out here. I want to show you the edit page. If I navigate without my mouse, it's because I'm using the shift keys. These are hotkeys essentially. And if you look at the bottom, media, cut, edit, fusion, color, fairlight, and deliver are the workflow pages, and they can be navigated with shift 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Shift 1 and shift 9 are these at the lower half over here. I see the project manager, shift 1, and project settings. So if you're looking at my screen in the bottom right hand corner here, as I move my mouse, hopefully you can see that. And if you haven't already, please take your screen full screen, because I know we're sending out 1080p, but sometimes it can be really difficult to see the interface elements. So I want to make sure you're not lost. Okay, so what I did was I brought all my media into the media page. Now it's important to show these as they relate in the workflow. Media is usually your first step, and the top left-hand corner is going to be my my media storage. These are the actual locations that these files exist on my computer, and you can see that here. If you look at the little metadata panel, and it tells you volumes, etc. It'll point to where that is. Go to layout preset to share. No, I wouldn't say there's a go-to layout preset, and I tend to use dual screen, but in this case, because I'm demoing and I have to show everything all at once on one shared screen, I've turned that off. But in the workspace menu, you can see that, well, one, I've turned full screen on, so I don't have any of the dots on the top left, the close or full screen dots. But then essentially, I'm just using this mode, so I have a single screen, just the iMac Pro, and I normally configure this for my video output as well when I don't have a video monitor connected, but dual screen is not on right now. So everything kind of lays out by itself, and if you ever get stuck and you've changed things, you can just reset here. You probably saw that, reset UI. Sorry, I'm moving my mouse a little weird. There we go, reset UI layout. I'll let go of the mouse so it moves. So it stays there and you can see it. Okay, so now in the media page, right, I can preview this media. And I can do that, of course, with my speed editor, jog wheel, which I love. And at the same time, you'll see some details about that, whether you've actually imported this media into your timeline or not. The lower half of this project, or this page here, is my project and the media within. So I've already imported all this media. I've organized it into these bins. So here you can see, I've got music separated. There's my waveform. And I'm probably not sharing that audio with you from my screen, but you can clearly see my VU meters bouncing. And that allows us a whole bunch of options here. We can, preview the spot. We can mark in out. We can add markers, etc. Things like that. There's the marker overlay. All it did was hit M twice. So let's just remove that marker. There we go. Remove the marker. And you see that I've got this Visit the City campaign. So that was what I chose for my little edit. And I'm switching into the edit page to show you. I just built basically, a 30-second spot, cut to some music. The question about like how do you determine where you make your music choices, where your music edits land. If you're talking about a trailer, you clearly have to have, well, you're likely going to have more than one clip. Right? In this 30 spot, I basically just had one clip, and I just Frankensteined it into bytes, little chunks that I could use and kind of cut together in time. Well, I've done that here in what's called this 30 spot music bed. If you look at this timeline view options, if you can see what just hovered over with my mouse, if I enable this this left-hand stack timelines option, that's what I'm looking at now, and that actually allows me to have multiple timelines. If I have multiple open timelines in my project, like just the string out with my content. Let's go back. Haha, you. All right, well, you're gonna have to wait just 1 second. Maybe we should go back to full screen on me, John, while I get this launched again. So I can stretch, right? It's the beauty of live. I got a production going on here. So you can take me back now, John. I've got the UI up again. I'm just launching the Artlist. What you're looking at here is, yes, the speed editor wants to be updated. Great. I just launched my project manager, and I did so that you can see that, in this thumbnail view, I'm just looking at my projects. That is a little different if you're not used to Resolve. Resolve works with a database and essentially holds all the projects in this database. And if I expand this little area over here left of the name projects where it says show hide databases, you'll see that I'm currently looking at a Postgres shared database as opposed to a disk database. Now the difference here is that on the free version we used to be limited to the disk databases, and now they can also access shared databases. The shared databases allow us the opportunity to enable collaboration for simultaneous use, or just to check in and check out open projects. But basically, this database is shared to anyone who has the correct IP address that's listed here. Very, very simply, these are your live project files. These are the currently live versions. And if you've exported from here, which you can, right-click, choose Export Project or Export with Stills and LUTs. These are dead files, right? When you export one, you've removed it from the database and you've archived it somewhere else. So think of that as an archive. Think of it like an incremental save or a backup that you have somewhere else. It's not the current version of this file. It's the current version as of the date that you saved it. Your live versions are always in your database. Now, one other thing I want to show you is if I right-click in the empty space, I've turned on dynamic project switching. And I've done that so I can just open a second project at the same time. So, yes, I'll just go through and say, great, the gallery needs updating. Since that asked me for something that's kind of relevant to what I'm going to show you, let's go to the project settings, okay? Because I don't want to spend too much time going over the basics of the project settings necessarily, but to point out a few things that are key, in understanding how Resolve works. The master settings here control the timeline resolution for all new timelines in the project, and the frame rate is fixed basically once you've imported your media after you've set this. Now, what that means, and of course I've matched my video monitoring to UHD as well. What that means here is that we are resolution independent, and we can create timelines independent of that resolution. I can also switch this resolution at any time. So while I'm working with this in a UHD project, if I switch this down to 1080 HD instead, yeah, I'm going to have to change my video monitoring, but that's not going to mess with you guys because you're not looking at my video output. But all I've done now is, if you look at the actual scale here of the viewer on the top left-hand corner of this viewer, as I used my middle mouse to scroll in and out. And again, if you have a 3-button mouse, it's highly recommended, and I'll be showing you why as well. My little 3-button mouse is very simple, but it's got a middle click. If you click the middle mouse button and move, you now have a pan, and this works across all the viewers. Okay, every viewer here has this same pan option. So I get in the habit of using a 3-button mouse all the time, and I recommend it. So you can see that at 82%, that's my new frame size. And if I go back here and switch it back to UHD 4K, and again, I've ignored that here. Let's go and fit. Then what we see is that nothing appears to change in my viewer. I'm looking at the 1080 timeline as opposed to the UHD timeline, and that's because, let me go back to my media pool, and let's just show you list view for a minute, and I'm going to expand the media pool to include my hierarchy. Okay, so when I've done that, that opened up the smart bins, and I mentioned smart bins because I do turn them on. That includes user smart bins for any circle takes or ProRes media. These are things that I've already set because in most cases I want to be able to separate the content and organize it automatically in my timeline and in my project. But it also turns on keywords and people, shot and scene. So by default, it picked everything in the scene, because if there was anything listed in the metadata here for scene, right? So now again, this clip is selected and its tools appear in the inspector to the right. When I move to the File tab, which is new to 17, and I really enjoy this new update here to Resolve, adding these features and kind of separating the features into this panel. Well, what this gives me is a whole bunch of detail, including, yes, you're absolutely right to be shocked. This is 12K from our Ursa Mini Pro 12K footage. That I'm just tossing around. Here it is. If you look at it in my timeline, clearly it's going to fit to my viewer, and it's doing that all based on this image scaling setting. Okay, so I've got scale entire image to fit and match timeline settings right now. So that's handling my resolution jump, right? That's handling the fact that this is 12K media, and the fact that this media now opens up this tool, and I can see, let's go to the image palette, I can see that I can choose how to decode my 12K, right? By default, I'm looking at the project setting, and the decode quality is the project setting again. But this is another case where if I know this 12K media is coming into my 1080 timeline, and I just need it because I can do punch-ins and reframes, if I wanted to, I can just choose a lower resolution to decode into. I know I'm never going to punch in past X number, so this could be my choice. I could just go to 4K, and then it gives me 4 quadrants of my 1080 frame. But there's a lot of new features built into the image panel. Before I bore absolutely everybody with all these little features, I just wanted to show off a few things. And let me go back to my other timeline. So now the other timeline is actually in another project. Since we opened up the dynamic project switching option, you'll see this little pull-down menu at the top. So 12K, let's switch to the Artlist edit. And for the Artlist edit, I mostly grabbed HD MP4, but I also threw in some kind of mismatched footage as well. So let's show you a little trick. If I drag select across my media pool, you'll see all of the media here. It might even be nicer to see it in this new metadata view, which essentially shows me thumbnail and details. And then as I click on these, you'll see this is a 422 HQ 2997 1920 by 1280 interesting frame, right? This one is 4K by 4096 by 2304, right? Double click. In this case, I've turned off a function called Live Media Preview. So let me turn it on, and you can kind of see how that updates now. Now I don't actually have to click any of this media to preview it in my source viewer in the edit page. This is my source. This is my timeline viewer. And you can tell actually, since quick navigation is my style, you can see that this red indicates the source viewer is active, and the white indicates that the timeline viewer is not active. That means that my tools are actually going to control whatever is active in this view. But Q, toggle Q on your keyboard, and you can now just jump back and forth. So Q, great, I want to find this piece right here. Q, now I'm controlling where I want it to edit. Great, I mark in and out. I can then add the smart insert, the append, the ripple overwrite, or the source overwrite. Either of these is active now because I made the timeline active. So I've performed my edit. Now that's just very simple and with no hands, right? This is keyboard only. But if you're using a mouse, right, if you grab any of these files here from the source viewer or directly from the bin and drag them over to the overlay in the timeline viewer, you can see that you have these 7 favorites essentially, right? These are the ones that we use the most, so these are the ones that you're going to have access to. Appended N, if you're trying to slug all your content down into your timeline first, mark in, mark out your selects and get them into a string out, append at N will always add to the end of your timeline, no matter where you were in your cut. So to keep that in mind, the overlays work, the keyboard shortcuts work. I tend to use keyboard shortcuts more than anything, but I want to make sure you can see where the tool is that I'm actually using. Q is selecting whatever your mouse is over. Actually, Q doesn't even follow my mouse. So you can see my mouse is over here on the lower half of the actual linear timeline, with the time bar, right? Q is still toggling between my source and my timeline viewer. So that question just popped up live. All right, yeah, I guess the UI of the software is having a hard time being squished down into 1080 pixels and sent to you folks over the internet. So apologies if it looks a little blurry. All right, let me not waste any more time, and I'm just going to close up this one here. I just did the very basic. You can't hear it, but you can see my VU meters here. I'm going to turn that down for myself because I can certainly hear it. And what I just did there was I hit the dim button, right? You can see that there's a volume slider on the edit page, and the dim button here just drops you minus 20 dB. It's a really simple option, in fact. So let me go right now back to the other timeline. I'm in this view where I can see stacked or tabbed versions. And while I'm there, let me just show you again. Let's close that one and open a stack. Okay, a stack timeline allows me to do the same view, but in this case, whichever one is active has the red playhead. This is something that you're going to notice if you do go into the collaborative workflow. Red playhead indicates the active timeline. gray playhead indicates you don't have edit control over it in a collaborative workflow. So in this case, it's just showing me the difference between the focus. So as this has focus now, you know, these controls are working. And the beauty of the stack timeline is, as you've probably seen, you know, in other tools that do similar things, I can just, you know, mark a range. Obviously, you know, I can say, you know, in-out range, or I can just select the clips as I did just there by drag selecting, and I can simply drag into my active timeline from here. So, you know, now having put those clips into the timeline, I can make new edits from them. Okay, so let's show you what I'm actually doing. If I use the speed editor, there's a function called trim in, trim out. And trim in and trim out on the cut page is automatically a, let's just go ahead and close the whole stack. On the cut page is automatically a ripple function. So as it's just to kind of make it simpler to create your assembly. So if you were to perform these trim tool functions and say, great, I like, here, let's get to that spot, right? So I can split my clip, I can ripple delete the rest, I can trim the in. You see, as I mouse over this, or as I use the jog, scroll, shuttle dial, however you define it, what it's actually showing me in the viewer is my 2-up. It's showing me the previous edit and the next edit, and then it's showing the number of frames that I'm trimming. Now, all of these can be done obviously without mouse interaction, but since I have a pointer here and I need to show you what I've done, let me just go back to my edit page. Because with the normal edit tool, and this kind of differentiates how they're working, the normal edit tool can roll, right? If in this case it can't roll because clearly there's no trim, but then it can actually trim, right? In this case, trim the tail, trim the head. You can see the direction change as I mouse over this clip, and of course it'll reposition, right? It'll just simply drag over. The screen itself, it draws in you know, 60 frames, right? And that allows for, you know, very smooth interactions and you know, updates. There's visual cues everywhere. One of the things that I kind of neglected to point out, because it's probably going to be hard for you to see at this tiny little little window here that I'm sharing. If you can see it, and I'm going to move my mouse in the general area, I'm looking at this area right here. There's a downward caret animation. The downward caret animation, right, little down pointing arrows, they switch based on where I am on this clip to give me visual indication of where my next smart insert edit would work, or where my trim in or trim out is actually functioning. So if I'm over here on the head of this clip and I'm choosing to trim out, I'm behind the head of this clip. I'm actually trimming the tail of the previous edit point. If I choose trim in, obviously it's going to trim, as you would expect, the head of this current clip. If I move over the halfway point and trim out, well, now it's trimming the tail of this same clip. And again, having moved halfway over, if I trim the in, now I'm trimming the in of the next clip. Okay? So smart inserts and the smart indicators are telling me precisely where my edit functions are happening. This is an edit page, this is a cut page feature. The other features, these are completely editable here, you know, in either timeline, as you see fit, okay? Roll edits, trim head and tail, reposition, right? If I just grab this clip and drag it here, it's repositioned, right? There's obviously, there's some other things like I can click and hold with my speed editor, and I can reposition. That's a really useful feature. I really enjoy having the speed editor. So let me go to the edit page and show you what I've done. Option Y to select everything from the playhead forward, and then I just created a little space here. Now, I mentioned that this can roll, this can trim head, this can trim tail with the normal edit function. If I switch now into the trim edit function, these are ripple trims. Okay, so the trim head and trim tail ripples. And if I hover over the middle, you can see that it's changed. It's no longer this mouse indicator. This is a double-sided. And Yes, sorry if I'm going too fast with the keyboard shortcuts. I do actually have to remind myself to use my mouse so you can see what I'm doing. Right now, it's all mouse. So with the playhead in the edit page, as I hover over this clip with my mouse, and hopefully you can see that, I'll just keep moving it for a minute. If I hover over the middle in the picture thumbnail and then click, this is just a slip, okay? So I'm slipping my in-out points of an edit without adjusting the duration, right? If I click down here into the lower area where the name is, or the title of this clip, then actually what I have now is I have a slide. I have a repositioning slide. So you see the 4-up display is showing the lower left quadrant. There's no edit point here, right? So let's just say, let's do this. All right, so that's I'm on a Mac, so my shortcuts are Command, but anywhere I say Command, just replace that with Control. In most cases, that's going to be your shortcut. And if I say Option, that's going to be Alt. Okay, if we're talking about Windows. So what I did there was I just used Command Shift, right? So with this clip selected, Command Shift, and then it'll just snap over to reposition the edit points. So that's all I did. I just moved this over here and said, great, I want it to live there. I could do it with the keyboard, but then you wouldn't be able to see it happening. Okay, so as I slip this clip now, since it's within another edit, you'll see all 4 of these in the 4-up display. You'll see the lower left is now my previous edit. The top left and right are the new in and out points, and the bottom right is my next edit. As I use the slide tool, you'll see the same thing. Sorry if it wasn't updating there for a minute. Only now it's switched. The bottom 2 are actually indicating the edit points, right? The previous and next edit, because I'm repositioning this clip. All right. So then let's do something else with this footage, because I've done a few things to it. There's some indicators of speed, and yeah, here, let's do this. Watch. I feel like a DJ. Where's my mixing console? Okay, so now everyone actually got to hear that. That's great, because I turned my speakers up. We're going old school here. So just to show what I'm up to, these indicators here, let me go ahead and use this zoom function on my timeline so you can see what we're doing, okay? So here is the full extent zoom. This will always show your entire edit. Even as you added footage to it or trim footage, it'll automatically adjust to show you your entire edit. This is just a default full extent zoom. So if you're using a mouse, you can click this one. If you're using a mouse and you want to click custom zoom, the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift Z. Custom zoom, really functional. Okay, yes, it will also do the same thing, which is to show everything. But with the Command and plus or Control and plus on your keyboard, plus and minus will zoom out, right, with the Control or the Command key held. Now, so I've just zoomed in. This is now my custom zoom. You can see that right here. It shows you that I'm in custom zoom mode. So here's a great keyboard shortcut, Shift Z. Shift Z will toggle me back to the entire extent, but Shift Z is a toggle. So Shift Z again, and I'm jumping right back to my thing. So if I need to be able to jump in and out, everyone needs to constantly zoom in, zoom out to make your edit choices. If this is how you work normally, this is how you work normally, this is how I work normally. This is why I use this function. Keep in mind, if I switch with Shift 3, okay, to jump to the cut page, notice that that's kind of irrelevant now. I always have this lower expanded version. So if I need to see, frames, like here, like where's my edit point? I can clearly, you can see the frame edit point lights up green, okay, to indicate where it's going. I'll show you that in the edit page as well, just in case you're not yet familiar with the way cut works. Just to give you an option, right? The cut page is so fast, it might even be great to just use it, even if you're familiar with the edit page. Use the cut page first. Get your assembly in. Because one of the things I'm going to show you right now, and again, well, it's a keyboard shortcut, so I'm going to show you with the mouse as well. But there's a button on here that toggles between source and timeline. So I'm currently in timeline view. If you look at this viewer, on the top left-hand side, you'll see these little icons over here to the left of the name where it says Nightlife 30 text, right? Over here, this is the timeline view. The next one over is the source view, right? It's called source tape. And then if we do source clip, that's actually dropping into a single clip. So if I hit the source button, well, now it wants to look at my entire media pool, and you can see the hierarchy here of what I'm looking at. My entire media pool, let's switch to scroll. So I can look at everything that's in my project file, every clip, and it'll simply, jump between them as I look for it. This allows me to edit directly from the source into my timeline, or just use the preview options. In fact, there's something called a fast preview. So if you just click that, fast preview is going to go over all of your footage at the rate that it believes it needs to review them so that you can get enough content. If you've got a really short clip, then it plays it back real time. If you've got a really long clip, then it plays it back much faster. And we are 37 minutes in, so I really have to start moving. I'm gonna show you a couple of features that I definitely want to get to before I run out of time. So let me just move back to the edit page. Let me use my Shift-Z to do this. And I know I want to talk about the speed ramp. And so let's just go, let me just do that from the string out. Because I got a couple of examples that are kind of built in here. Yes, I use speed ramping and I use speed controls in the edit page for the Nightlife 30 spot. But let's just show you this one right here, okay? So here you go. This footage was shot, high frame rate, right? So it's all available to me to edit, and really the only thing I had to do there was decide to, to play it back, interpret it at high frame rate so that it would play back in, quote, real time, and then drop back into 100% playback, and it plays back slower. Speed ramping is poor and locked compared to Premiere. Well, I hope to convince you. Here's what I've done, okay? Let me just go ahead and show you that with this selected, yes, there are video controls that you can see the speed change, and you can see some of these details. This is new to 17, okay? And some of these make it a little easier for you to figure out what we're doing, right? If I do it very simply on this and say, yes, we're playing that forward, right? And the ferry is going under the bridge and to the right. Okay, but if I click this reverse button, then the ferry is going the other way, right? So this is very simply the speed change and the freeze buttons built into the speed change tool are really going to be easy to use. Okay, and then I'll tell you that when we drop into real retiming, that's where we really sing. So let's show you what we do. Command R to turn on the retiming control. Shift C to turn on the speed curve, which I've shown as retime speed control. So here's my ramp. And you can see that I go from, 900% speed playback smoothly right down to 100% speed because this is high frame rate shot footage. But very simply, let's just switch to the trim tool, and then let's add another speed point, like here with it still, midair, okay? Add a speed point, and now I want it to go back to playing back incredibly fast. So let's just drag this handle up to, I don't know, whatever that is, 900%. Select this, smooth with Bezier. Let me go ahead into this now. Detail zoom, which automatically focuses in on what Resolve thinks you might want to look at. Again, I can do custom zoom, my own specification. Detail zoom is a real quick back and forth, just so I can see. So here's the custom zoom option. I just zoomed in some more. So let's smooth this speed point out, just a hair, and then I'll zoom back out, and let's just hit play. Okay, so here it is. but back to real time, just like that, okay? And then, you know what, maybe the action isn't right. So let's say I want it right here on this action. So let's just grab this handle and then stretch it out again. And then see. All right. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, Pierre, but I think that's pretty sexy. All right, so I'm gonna stick with it. Okay. Now, before I run out of time, I did want to show you. Let's switch over here to my timelines. Do I have one? Yes. Great. Fusion. Okay. Fusion is something that not a lot of people are familiar with because it's node-based, and a lot of people I know prefer their compositing in a vertical stack, okay? Well, the Resolve Edit timeline is really just a vertical stack. So, if you want to do some basic compositing, you can do that in the Resolve timeline. There's an awful lot of things that you can do, like not the least of which here, let's just grab another clip, okay? So you can see that I've already overlaid this clip. This clip has its tools available here in the inspector. So let's go to the composite mode, right? So if the composite mode needed to be screen or add or overlay or exclusion or hard light, here let's just say difference, right? So now everywhere there's picture underneath it, as the picture moves, you can see that it's changing the interpretation of the composite mode. All right. So there's a lot of advanced compositing you can do in the edit page. You just get rid of this, and I'm going to drop into the Fusion comp that I've built. Really quickly, go to the effects library and then go to your tools and just kind of turn that down. You can see all of the tools available here, and you can hover over and you can get a sense of what they're doing. Okay, there's a whole bunch of tools here in Fusion. Now this might look like salad, okay? Give me 2 minutes and I'm definitely going to show you what this really means, okay? It's just a flow chart. And if you've been familiar with color page, and mind me for just jumping over, this is also just a flow chart. So we build our grade in a flow chart, essentially. The signal goes in to this one, and then we apply some change, like here. We cool it off, okay? Oh, you can't even see that because I'm bypass, all right? So we can disable the nodes because I'm on the wrong thing. There we go. Cool it off. Okay, so there's our footage. You see that we've adjusted our scope. Let me go ahead and right-click and reset everything on that one. So back in the Fusion page, you can step through the workflow at any point, and the workflow is available to you here. I just navigate between them. All right. Yes, I'm 43 minutes in. All right. Well, I'm going to move fast, but I definitely want to cover this before we're done. So I know this was somebody had asked earlier about the Fusion aspect of things. These are just nodes. Every node feeds in to another node with the pipeline. Okay. So this is the background. The 3 dots at the bottom indicate my viewers. Okay. So this is the very first viewer, and there's basically just one element in the background. It's this new solid background. So if I drag it up, that's another short way of getting it to that viewer, okay? And then I can change the background color to, a gradient or something, right? This is my background. And then I've added just a rectangle to limit my background, okay? And then I've just adjusted what I show in that rectangle. You see that by having it selected, if I click on these, they actually connect in the flow. So you don't really have to remember how they connect at this point. You just leave them selected and then move on to your next one. It'll simply chain over, okay? So now, if we do what I've done here, let me just go ahead and not rebuild it from scratch. I'll show you what I've done. There's my rectangle. Here, let me go to the end so you can see what it looks like. Now, I've got a merge. Everything in Fusion is A over B, okay? So this is foreground, the green line, over background, the yellowish orange line, okay? And then that is now a texture. I've added a texture to my background rectangle. You can see it kind of in here with a little bit of alpha here. And it's also animated, right? Like I created a little seethe rate so you can see that it changes. Okay, so adding a texture, the result is this. Let's go to the end so you can see it. There's my rectangle with the texture in it. I've now added that as the background. I've added new elements. The new elements I've added is very simply, I added a color wheel, okay? And then I transformed my color wheel to shrink it and put it over there. And then I added a posterization effect to my color wheel. And then I have limited that with an ellipse. So there's an ellipse in the effect mask that's limiting the range of this glow that I've added in this posterize. And then that's being merged A over B. Again, this is the foreground over my rectangle. So it's just like stacking vertically, right? Imagine that the rectangle is my solid, it's at the bottom of my stack. This posterized version of whatever graphic I've added is now above that in the column, right? Okay, let's get to the other merge now, because this is actually where it gets fun. So let's show you the merge 3D. Now, I've added a 3D title here with lighting and everything, and this is again why the 3-button mouse is incredibly important, because these two fingers, okay, the middle mouse and the left mouse, I am going to press both and then push my mouse forward and back. That gives me my zoom in and out to my 3D environment. Now, middle mouse, right mouse, okay, middle mouse, right mouse is an orbit around. So I can orbit through my space. What I'm kind of doing, and hopefully that's not too small that you can't see what that looks like, there's a virtual camera. Middle mouse click, again, is a pan, just like every other place in the viewers. There's my light, okay, virtual light, virtual camera. There's some text and some things going on, and they're all animating, okay? So I've added a title, okay? I've added another title. I added a little bar, and then they're all in this merge with a light and a camera to look at. The end result of this merge is I render it out to 2D because, again, I can't play in 3D, you know, in a 2D environment. My video pipeline is going to be 2 dimensions going out, right? Video signal output. That ends here at the render. I've added a lens blur to that as well, and then I've added a merge now to composite that title that I created in 3D, rendered to 2D, over this other one, all right? And then, yeah, definitely get your questions in because I'm going to be running out of time, but I wanted to focus on this for sure. The end result is media out. You see the dot here that indicates it's on viewer 2. The merge is being shown on viewer 1. Let's do this merge on viewer 1 so you can see as I move across, right? The things are animating. The light is wiping across it. This is probably going to have to cache again for me because you can see that caching as I moved into it in Fusion. I just wanted to show this building it from scratch because clearly there's there's so much you can do inside Fusion from scratch without plugins. It's not to say that we don't include plugins. There are OpenFX plugins, Resolve Effects plugins that are available to Fusion. There are amazing amounts of these plugins actually. So let's go to the effects library and show that, well, one, as I hover over them, because I've enabled that here, right, hover scrub preview, I can actually see how they're going to preview what I'm doing. So yes, here's my triangle iris, cool. I've saved the picture, here's my 4-way split. Okay, now onto some more interesting things, not just SMPTE wipes, right? I've got some user presets like curvy additive dissolve. So let's just go ahead and show you, let's put another clip in here, right? And then I'll just make that a dissolve. Cool. Undo. Let's make that a ramp up additive dissolve. All right. Oops. I can't see what I'm doing. There we go. All right. Now with that selected, you can hover over to preview, or you can just kind of see what it's doing. Let's show you. Let's expand this really quickly. Okay. And then shrink that. There we go. So with the additive dissolve, you can see this is a curve. Well, it's a curve that I've defined, okay? And I can change this curve. You want a different kind of an additive dissolve preset? Great, here it is. I just happen to have saved this as my user setting. So I've created a favorite. It shows up here, all right? It's incredibly easy to modify and save your own user favorites. There are a number of Fusion transitions built in that are really, really nice right now. So I would recommend looking through all of these because it'll get you a lot of the way. And if you just want to start with titles, you saw me build one, but let's just say if I was to put, text box over here, this text box is another element, and it's pretty simple to modify because its tools, again, they show up in the inspector. But if you did need to customize this, drop into Fusion, the topmost element now being a Fusion comp, double click, here's what's rendering in there. Here's your text, okay? So with this node selected, double click to open that, you know, test footage, okay? Cool. Back into edit, you can see test footage is updated. Yes, I can do that directly here in the edit page. But yeah, so I think I'm nearly out of time. And okay, so which do I prefer, the cut page over the edit page, and vice versa? All right, that's a valid question. And to be honest, you know, I'm an editor from before the cut page existed. You know, from before a single view existed, and I am so comfortable here in the source record style of editorial. It's my wheelhouse. However, I will jump into the cut page all the time for my very first assembly, because I've got the speed editor. I can use like no mouse whatsoever to drop and you know, move through my source footage like a source tape, right? When I switch here, I can see the entire bin as just this one tape. So here, just scrub over, and you can see these are all the clips that are in this particular bin view, okay? It's incredibly handy. It makes it really easy to do. But yes, obviously, I prefer the ability to do it. And yes, you color your footage in DaVinci, you're probably going to send out an XML and then import that XML. So just like you would anywhere else, go to your bin, okay, and then go File, Import, Import Timeline is what we're looking for. Because the timeline offers the XML, the EDL, the AAF, right? Even the new ones from Resolve, like DaVinci Resolve Timeline, DRT, and .drb even come in. So you can see I have a few set up here that are examples. So you can import the whole timeline. Obviously, if you work with someone in Resolve, it's going to be a lot easier to bring in a Resolve project. Everything comes across. Most of everything comes across in XML these days, and AAF translates a whole bunch more stuff now, including in 17.3.1 there was a change. I think in .3 there was a change to the AAF interpretations that brought over compatibility with even more nested sequences. So, you know, some of these things that you might have if you're working professionally with other people, other editors, there's definitely ways of doing this. In fact, the easiest thing is, hey, I just made this timeline, right, this nightlife, but I need to send it to somebody. So let me go to my timelines and go right-click and choose Timeline, Export, and then choose to export my DRT. Just hand somebody the DRT. If they have the media, it's going to automatically work. It's going to connect to the media. You know, hopefully it's in the same path, but it'll find it and import it. If they don't have the right media, then you need to do something else. You need to go to File, Media Management, or DRA. Okay, so you'd say Timeline, you'd say the 30-second spot and the music bed need to go over. Used media with handles, etc. Preserving hierarchy. Here's my current size. Here's my new size. And then browse to where I'm going to put it. Okay, and if this is a copy process, it takes the original, and then the transcode is just, you know, you get to pick. You know, do I want to make proxies of this, right? When I make my transcode of my editorial, or do I want to put it into a different format? Maybe they can't play H.264 very well, so I'm going to go to ProRes 422 or whatnot. Okay, and then also know that we can do, let's see. Render in place feature, render into out to Premiere. I'll tell you that if you find that you need to do more of those render in place things, you know, maybe your system can't handle it, go to the playback menu and go to render cache, okay, and set it to user or smart mode. Smart mode makes more assumptions about what it thinks it needs to cache, and then user allows you to do things like right click on it and say, great, this one definitely turn on so that it'll play back, you know, no problem, or render the whole thing for color output, right? And that way it'll play back full speed in the color page. If you go to the project settings, again, the boring part, but if you go to the project settings, master settings, scroll to the bottom, right here, optimize media and render cache, where you're going to set those preferences. I tend to work where I set a proxy media and an optimized media and a render cache format to a broadcast deliverable format. That way, when I get to the deliver page, in the advanced settings, I can turn on bypass re-encode when possible. and use render cache images, use proxy media. That way I can render from the footage that I already have that's cached, it's ready to go, it doesn't have to process anything else. So I definitely don't want to go over too much more, but I do want to show my color work because I did say that this is all mixed media. You can see in the color page, ProRes 422, you can see there's some raw media here too as well, right? There's some raw files. Well, in order to get there really quickly, I did color management, YRGB color managed. Okay, in color manage, it's going to read the metadata, and it's going to read based on the .3 extension to determine, or in some cases the NCLC. It's going to read that from the files and make some determinations about it. In this case, I know I'm going out to 709, so my management preset is for 709. Okay, and the output space is 709, but I could just as easily move to a DaVinci wide gamut, which I've been recommending now more often than not, because this gives me the flexibility to decide later. Do I really need to export this, to Netflix P3D65 SMPTE 2084,000 nits? Well, I can, because these transforms happen non-destructively. Everything in here is being calculated in 32-bit floating point, and that means that essentially we just have a larger bucket of data in the Resolve timeline and processing stage. Okay, so everything gets transformed from your input. In this case, the color managed environment is saying, let's move us all into a scene. The scene is going to be 709, okay? So bring whatever footage I have into that scene, make a transform to that 709. In many cases, this came in 709. In many cases, it came in log, and I actually had to interpret it like this. This came in log and was, ungraded, okay? Now, yeah, I'm definitely running up against my last 3 minutes here, so I just wanted to show that I've thrown a little grade on top of these things, but to be fair, let's just go ahead and I'm just going to toggle that off. This is where it started, and that's because it interpreted, the footage the way that it came in, and the same thing for the red footage. Let me turn that off. You can see, yes, it gets a little less sharp. You can only really see that in the parade. That's a ProRes clip. That's DNX HQX, right? This came in log again. Right? So in my grade, you can see that I've just applied a little tiny bit, but a lot of that happened without my interference because of the fact that I was in YRGB color managed. So just know that you can do that. Then of course, you have the ability to input color space, make a change, right? But like I said, the interpretation is based on the metadata, so most of the time Resolve is going to be right. Sometimes you might want to override that, all right? I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know that I'm pushing up against an hour, and I really pushed it all right to the edge. Resolve is a really deep program. I wanted to make sure that you got to see, a bunch of what I was able to do in it today. But definitely, I want to mention again that the Artlist Artgrid Edit Challenge. I might as well go to my first picture here. There we go. Let's go back. I have it on Unmix, right? Edit Challenge 2021. So go to the link that's that's in this this YouTube page right here, and then join up, try to win. Maybe you'll get a Resolve license, maybe you'll get some other camera gear, maybe you're going to get one of our cameras. In fact, you're looking at me right now on one of our cameras. I have that set up as a webcam. So one of my favorite things this last 18 months or so has been working with some customers that actually need to use webcams a lot more, and may have had our cinema cameras. Well, this cinema camera can be controlled with this ATEM that I have. So I have an ATEM Mini. I just switched to my full video output. We were doing this for remote edit review with clients that were in Mexico and Colombia. So this is another incredible use with some of our other hardware that we have here. But I'll go back to my full screen, and then I want to thank everyone for viewing and allowing me to take over this Artlist YouTube channel for a little bit of time, and I hope you were able to learn some amazing tricks and tips, and leave comments and let us know what you thought. All right, thanks so much.